Hello, everyone on Patreon. Thank you so much for your ongoing support and for voting this month on a bonus movie review. The winner this month is Weekend from 1967. This was directed by Jean-Luc Godard. He co-wrote the script with Julio Cortázar. I hope I have that right. And it starred Mireille Darc, Yanne and Jean-Pierre Leaud. I hope, geez, I'm terrible at pronouncing these names. I hope I have that somewhat right. The plot is a surreal tale of a married couple going on a road trip to visit the wife's parents with the intention of killing them for the inheritance. So this, by many people, considered this to be Godard's best film, and I'd never seen it before. I had it on my watch list for a while. I have this conflicted relationship with Godard because a number of his films are very hard to watch, particularly the period after this came out, where his filmmaking drastically evolved, and even in the '60s, his films were very unique. I mean, there's no one like him. There really, I can't think of anyone to compare Godard to really, and this film feels like that bridge between his narrative filmmaking and then what we often saw later with they were like essay films is the best way I suppose to describe it, where people are literally reading out of books often, or the images with voiceover of different quotations, and you never really know where these quotations are coming from, and people saying different things in different sharing different things from literature and poetry and politics and philosophy and stuff like that. And, sometimes I find that really hard to watch. And there was actually an interesting, and there that exists in this film too. Jean-Pierre Leaud's character, he plays like this, political figure reading Marxist, far left-wing communist philosophies and ideologies out of books and stuff like that. And some critics felt that he it makes the audience feel stupid because you don't really know where this is coming from or what the context is or who's written it and stuff like that. And then other people have felt that he actually believes that the audience is intelligent enough to understand why he's saying what he's saying, and why he just really listen to the words, I suppose, and take what you want from it. And Godard said, if you want to say something with a movie, then literally just say it. And so that was the way he looked at it. And so I find that always difficult to watch, and I find I tune out because they're just like people reading, and you're like, what is this about? What are the, and it's often not easy things to hear. And so I get kind of bored in those moments. And a lot of his films I've just turned off. I've started them and turned them off. Some I've gone back to and enjoyed. And some of the films he did, I mean, there's a lot of his movies I haven't seen yet, but post 1970, some of the films where he returned to narrative filmmaking are pretty interesting that I've just recently caught up with. But that being said, this is a really dark, surrealist comedy, and this is Godard at his angriest. And Pauline Kael felt that this was like a glimpse of hell, Godard's vision of a glimpse of hell, and this is where he felt the world was going. And, in the 1960s, he hated the French bourgeois. And this is during, the student movements, and the country was in unrest, and there was a lot of protests constantly. It's well known in the Cannes Film Festival that year that him and Truffaut and others, asked for it to be boycotted and for nothing to be screened. Because people should hear what the students are saying and the problems of the day, and the consumer culture was getting, bigger and bigger and bigger, and people like Godard felt that this was a terrible way to live, and it was only going to lead to people literally eating each other up, and what you see in the film. And so it's a shocking film in a lot of ways, and even in the end, I mean, Godard didn't even feel he was going to make anything after this. and he told his crew that he had worked with before at the end, go find other work because he's not going to make any more films. And, obviously he did. But at the end, that's what it said, in the credits, the end of cinema. And so, really you can see that he was very angry and he hated the bourgeois. I don't even know if it's just the bourgeois. It seemed like he just hated humanity. And so we see this sort of middle class, well-to-do couple off the top, and their plan is to visit their parents, one of their parents, I'm not sure which parent it was from the two, and kill the father to get the inheritance, and they each secretly have a plan to kill each other and take all the money, and they're both having these affairs, which you see at the top. And so along the way, this road trip movie, we see all kinds of, car accidents, and of course that famous traffic scene, that long take where, people are on the road playing chess and cars are piled up along each other, and you're not really sure what we're going to see at the end, and then we just see dead bodies everywhere. And of course, if you look at people in the frame, people are very apathetic and they're just driving along, and you see that kind of behavior throughout, of just people being awful and apathetic and so in love with their possessions. I mean, there's one scene that really made me laugh where they get into a car accident and the wife is crying because her handbag was in the car, and that's what she was most upset about. Or even Jean-Pierre Leaud later, the husband is sitting on his car and he freaks out, right? So, those things come through strong. Or, he just the way he's really interesting the way he uses images, and, he's got like people looking right into the lens, and then he's cutting to people dead in cars and people smiling and looking like they don't care, and things like that. And so it's really interesting, but they're like, and those images, again, they're really striking and emotional and powerful. But I see, to me, where he sort of, I don't understand why he sometimes has, I mean, I get why he's doing it to an extent, like he's got these two characters, one Algerian and one black, and they both speak for each other and read from different books about the problems that black people are facing and the problems that Algerians are facing, and they're reading from Mao. And, again, at this time, a lot of left-wing people who are very left-wing were looking to the East for solutions to fight capitalism and the bourgeois society, as they felt were destroying the world. And so, he just holds the camera on their faces as they each eat this made big sandwiches and speak for each other. And there's this really interesting scene at the beginning where, it literally looks like, and this is not my interpretation. There's actually a really good video essay on the Criterion channel where the man who's speaking is talking about the fact that the camera is going in and out and back, and it is like sex or masturbation, and it's the woman, the wife, who is with the man she's having an affair with, and she's talking about this ménage à trois she had, and it's really like, it's based on a book apparently, and it's really interesting the way it's lit, because the light is actually in front of the lens, and so they're in like real darkness, and often so people can see you clearly is that the light is behind the camera, like very much like the shot I have now. I have the light behind the camera so that you can see me well, and it's the opposite. And of course it's intentional because it's meant to feel very dark and unemotional and unfeeling, and there's nothing erotic about it, even though she's talking about this menage a trois. It's like a really gross one, talking about like breaking eggs and putting eggs in between their legs and stuff like that, which again we later see when the married couple are on their journey and they get stopped by these like left-wing radicals who tie them up and kidnap them and similar things, and they're like cannibals, right? So that's basically what the film is getting at, is that the bourgeois is just going to lead to this destruction of society, and then that's going to spread where everybody, no matter what you think politically speaking, are going to eat each other up. And so like even the the left-wing radicals at the end are like cannibalists, and they kill the husband, and the wife joins them, and it ends with them eating the husband. And it's very funny, but at the same time it's grotesque, and it's shocking, and it's angry, and you can feel that he was, at this point, Godard, very, very angry about people and society, and he was bitter and cynical, and he just thought that things were gonna get worse and worse and worse. And in some ways, he was right. I don't know. We haven't gone to the point of cannibalism, but you look at where we are now in terms of greed, and capitalist greed and corporate greed have gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And so again, he had this way of being able to see things that were coming. I know that Andre Bazin the French critic felt that Renoir was really great at that too. He could just had this sense of things to come, which we see in things like Rules of the Game. And then you look at that film, and my God, I mean, they're like the rabbit scene, shooting the rabbits. I mean, it just feels like the Holocaust to an extent, which would come, just people being shot on the street for nothing but sport. And so here, again, we're seeing this sort of destruction of society because of greed and consumer culture. And you think, wow, he was on to something. So, again, I mean, I have some issues with it because, again, some of the just the talking out of books and stuff, you're kind of like, okay. But there's so much to admire because, again, like just the way in which he uses the frame and the editing and those long tracking shots are really original. Like, and then there's another one in the middle of the film, which is a 360-degree shot where this one man's playing the piano, and it's the only time that everybody is actually quiet and present and paying attention to the person, and no one's just out for themselves in that moment. So I felt maybe he was getting at the point that maybe art has some kind of unity, or people get feelings from art, or some kind of, spiritual experience from taking art in. So, but it's really, really interesting. And but again, I wish I had a better thing to say about, the fact that they're meeting up with historical figures along the way, or characters from books, and one of them they light on fire. I mean, again, I can see that their behavior is so outrageous and aggressive, but why he picked certain figures like that from like I know obviously it has that surrealist feeling. Where those choices came from or why, I don't know. I really can't figure out what that's about. I mean, he was an intellectual, right? And that for me is where his work has often fell flat. More so the period after this is because he's using sort of metaphors and things that you have to often think about a lot rather than experience. And I'm all for thinking and interpreting things, but I hope that often it comes from the people and the way in which they're behaving, and the complications from that, as opposed to metaphors or people reading out of books. I mean, again, like some critics have felt, it just makes you feel dumb because you're like, what is he getting at? So, but again, I did like a lot of the behavior you saw from them, and their apathy for others, and their disregard for others, and they're out to kill. And when they finally get to the parents' house, the man's already dead, the father's dead, and the mother doesn't want to give the inheritance up, and so they kill her. And there's just this shot of I think it was a rabbit, or I believe it was speaking of Rules of the Game, I think it was a rabbit, and there's blood is just pooling on this rabbit that's already dead, and they're holding I guess for dinner, like she's holding this rabbit that they're gonna go cook, and this pools of blood. There are some really shocking images, like I said at the end, with the people becoming cannibalists, and one guy just blood all over his shirt with these big knives, and you're like, oh my God, this is so insane. He really went all out with this one. But I think if it didn't have a sense of humor, it would be really hard to digest. But because it's sort of absurdist, dark humor, it does, it's like Oscar Wilde said, if you want to tell people the truth, you got to make them laugh, right? And so and it does, and I think that's what makes it work. So it's sort of, it left the hairs on the back of my neck standing after it ended, because I thought, wow, this is something truly original. Is it his best film? I don't know. I mean, who cares at the end of the day? But it's certainly truly unique. For me, I don't know if I would necessarily feel it's a great film, because some of those things, just like I said, speaking, reading from books, like, they don't quite sit well for me. Some of the things he does, like then there's one shot where suddenly these sheep just appear out of nowhere. And I'm like, what is he doing? I have no idea. Again, it's intellectual, and it's an intellectual view of life, but it does have that balance of sort of real visceral responses from the audience, and things are obviously clear, like with a car crash and her being more concerned with her bag, her expensive bag, than the fact that they were their cars are on fire and people are dead around them. So yeah, it's something else. It's really really interesting. I'll probably revisit it again, because I think it's such a hard movie to watch, that now that I have digested it, chewed on it, I can go back to it and maybe see more now that I know what to expect. So, but it's pretty unique. So I'm glad I finally caught up with it. So for those of you who voted for it, thank you so much. Comment below. Let me know what you think of this film, or if you haven't seen it, go after watching this review, go see the film, come back and let me know what you think. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next video.